As I read over these 5 chapters of Genesis, I was struck by how a familiar story took on new meaning for me. We read the Bible through the lens of our personal experiences. This time, sitting on the couch during my maternity leave with my newborn sleeping beside me, I found myself drawn to Sarah's story. In this section, she accepts her inability to have a child and pushes Abraham to conceive instead with her handmaid Hagar. She watches her husband receive the first Brit Milah and laughs at an angel's promise that she will bear a child. Finally, she is taken from Abraham to the court of Avimelech and then returned to her husband with great riches. In the midst of Sarah's story, Sodom and Amorah are destroyed as a punishment for their wickedness, and Sarah's nephew Lot rescued from the destruction. I was especially struck in this section by the many references to conception and childbirth, and my reading was shaped by my own experiences around pregnancy, loss, and childbearing. With that in mind, I'd like to offer a firsthand retelling of Genesis 16 through 20 through the voice of Sarah. The Bible speaks of how I did not bear a child for my husband Abraham, but that is only a half-truth. Yes, I was desperate to do my duty and bear him a son, but that came second to my own desire to fill my womb with life and hold my own baby in my arms. So when I gave up hope of bearing a child, I did what was expected and brought my maidservant Hagar to Abraham as a concubine, so that my husband's name and consequence might live on through a son. But when she conceived, oh, so quickly, and her pregnancy became evident, I found the pain more than I had ever expected. I thought I was, if not immune, at least numb to the pain of watching other women bloom with new life. But to see it happen with my own husband proved more than I could bear. Hagar did not help matters with how she flaunted her fertility, but it would be a lie to say that I was not looking for an excuse to rid myself of such a constant reminder of my own barrenness. Of course, driving Hagar away only brought a temporary reprieve, and when she returned, I had to find a way to live every day, watching her care for the baby that I desperately wished was my own. So when the angels came and promised me a child, I laughed. People say I laughed because I couldn't believe their words, but the truth wasn't that I couldn't believe them. It was that I wouldn't. To believe would be to hope, and to hope was to set myself up for more disappointment. As the text says, Chadal liot l'Sara orach kanashim. My periods had stopped coming. When my bleeding first stopped, I was filled with joy, believing that my most cherished prayers had been answered, and I was finally with child. But as the months passed, I came to accept the futility of my dreams. For the angels to reopen that door felt like a cruel and unthinking prank. Meanwhile, I watched those around me conceive with an ease that was almost insulting. When news came from my nephew Lot about the destruction of his city and the birth of his 2 sons, born by his daughters, I was overcome. That such a union, lasting only one night, could achieve what I had failed to over decades of marriage was a slap in the face. So when we came to Gerar and I was taken to Avimelech's palace, I had no more tears left to weep. My womb was old and empty. My husband was enamored with his son by another woman. And the God who stepped in so quickly to rescue me from Avimelech, who had the power to create the world in 6 days, still did not see it fit to allow me to create life in my womb. Instead, as we left Gerar, we heard the joyful sounds of God's blessing raining down on Avimelech and his household as his wife and concubines began to bear children again. I said that I wouldn't believe the angel's promise of a son, but of course, that was a lie. Hope defies all logic, and as I cry myself to sleep, I wonder if it's finally possible that God will fulfill the promise made to Abraham. Aval Sarah ishtecha yoledet lecha ben, v'karata et shemo Yitzchak, v'hakimoti et briti ito livrit olam l'zaro acharav. Nevertheless, Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac, and I will maintain my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring to come.